Yep. So, welcome everyone to the next episode of Inspired. I am super pleased to be joined with Deval Pandya today, who is Director of AI Engineering at Vector Institute. I think everyone who's in Canada knows about Vector Institute and the tremendous work they are doing in terms of AI and building the AI ecosystem within Canadian space, both in terms of upskilling people, also working with industry and overall AI adoption and fair practices as well for AI. So Deval, I'll pass it over to you. I don't think so I can do justice with your introduction, so I'll pass it over to you if you can share your background, your experience, and also some pivotal moment in your career which led to you breaking into AI and where you are today.
Thanks, Rish. Thanks for inviting me. Super happy to be here. So, the short introduction is, as you mentioned, I'm director of AI engineering. I head the AI engineering team at Vector, and the goal for our team is essentially threefold. And so, one is enabling more ambitious research through engineering, and hopefully, we will get a chance to kind of dig deeper into it, like in this era of really large models and foundation models, and how engineering is playing like a key role in even doing more profound research in the field. The second piece is identifying breakthrough research and then making it easier for our industry sponsors, for our small and medium enterprises, like in the Fast Lane program, which Vector has, for our hospital and medical, like healthcare stakeholders. How can we enable them to adopt the latest and greatest in AI with ease? And this is where we translate this research into artifacts and reference implementations and demos, and enable faster experimentation and proof of concepts. And in some cases, we are also now starting to take a bit more of a product view on certain aspect of that. And then the third piece, which is highly focused towards healthcare to start with, is deployment of this model. So there's a lot, like we talk as an industry a lot about gaps between, say, building the model and deploying the model, and then what happens even after you deploy the model. The whole, I would say, the paradigm of software with machine learning and intelligence in it, or as a few people would call it, like software 2.0, and what does it mean when there's intelligence within the software stack? And how do you not just reinvent the stack, but how do you also have to reinvent how you build that stack? Is something which I've been quite interested in and focusing on throughout my career. Before joining Vector, I spent quite a bit of time in Shell, and the last piece of that was I was leading the machine learning and data science team for our Shell's new energy business, and this is the business which used to focus on renewable energy, nature-based solutions, hydrogen, so like zero carbon fuels, and specifically supporting the entire businesses within Shell in terms of adopting machine learning and using data science to generate even more value, but also unlock new business models. Um, so I did that. I've always been passionate about the role technologies like machine learning and AI can play in expediting the energy transition and combating one of the biggest challenges of our lifetime, which is climate change. And so most of my work has been focused on that before joining Vector. And we are doing some of that in Vector as well. And this is kind of timely because we are closing this Earth Day. And I think hopefully I'll tell you like a little bit more through, we get time to explore a bit more about where AI and machine learning is already playing a key role, like in this climate change and climate mitigation kind of domain. Um, and on that same theme, I still volunteer at various organizations. One of them is I am a member of the task force at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, focused on digitalization of energy sector within decarbonizing buildings, very specifically. So that is where we are looking at, say, technologies and getting consensus amongst like various stakeholders in terms of what are the pathways to do that. And when I get a little bit more free time, I also volunteer as a technical director for an open source project called Mojo Global. The project focuses on building open source measurement, reporting, and verification software for land use change related carbon emissions. And various countries, including Canada, actually are using that software for their reporting as a part of the UNFCCC framework. So yeah, that is me. In terms of pivotal moment, I think if I look back, honestly, which has assisted me in this journey, a pivotal moment was while I was doing my master's thesis, and this is back in I was about to finish my master's thesis and embark on the PhD journey, and sort of neural networks are making a comeback, right? So this is like 2008 9 kind of an era. And why I say comeback, because obviously like the world knew, and the academia specifically knew about like the whole algorithmic framework around like neural networks and intelligence, which try to mimic how our brains work. But because of the rapid kind of advancements in compute and data, like data storage becoming cheaper, compute becoming cheaper and more kind of prolific, they're kind of making a comeback. A lot of research was happening around that time in that realm, more fundamental research. And my PhD was focusing on expediting fluid flow simulations, very specifically on computational fluid dynamics methods for solid and liquid flow. So this is multi-phase fluids. And I started learning more, and this was the time where I started incorporating some of those what now you would call machine learning or deep learning techniques for expediting physical simulations, and which I think I would say was pivotal moment, because that was the start of the journey. I didn't know that the whole field of machine learning will blow up, and I got an opportunity to start applying some of those things which were already ready very early on. So I learned a lot in terms of what are the real bottlenecks when you try to apply some of this, say, core mathematical concepts to solve, say, just non-mathematical and non-technical problems, which is more very much on the applied side. Uh, and I remember we had a lot of the old CFD code is actually Fortran code, right? And I joke that if I ever have to do my thesis again, I could finish it in a couple of days now. I would joke that I would finish it in a week, but now with this whole advancement of past 6 months, I feel like we can do it in 3 to 4 days, right, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, but yeah, that was very I think that decision or the direction which my research took has been key in continuing on this journey of machine learning, data science, and now AI in general.
great. Thank you so much for sharing this great journey. And you briefly touched upon, things that you are leading in Vector Institute. So what led to Vector Institute? And also if you could share, I was going through the mission as well of Vector Institute. So if you can briefly touch base on that, how Vector Institute and the role it is playing, especially in Canadian AI space.
Yeah, so I'll start with what Vector does, right? So Vector Institute is one of the leading AI labs in the world, right? And so by various measures, you could find out Vector is amongst top 10 AI institutes in the world. We are a nonprofit, and so what it means in practice, and which was also a great learning for me, coming from very much a for-profit kind of a mindset, is the way we define impact is not necessarily in terms of return on investment, but actually creating value for Canadian economy, for people in Toronto, Ontario, and Canada, but then for society in general. And so we can take a longer term view on some of the most pressing problems, whether they are fundamental, which our researchers kind of tackle, or they are applied, which essentially me and my team are kind of tackling. And so Vector is a nonprofit institute. It's also a public-private partnership. And what it means is we are bringing key stakeholder, both from the government side, both provincial and federal, as well as industry sponsors and small and medium enterprises and the startup ecosystem. All of that together with this mission of furthering and positioning Canada and Toronto as this emerging hub of AI. And I would argue that it's no longer emerging. I think it is the biggest hub of AI right now. And when you look at some of the missions you mentioned of Vector is around talent, for example, right? More than 90% of graduates of machine learning programs, which are Vector affiliated machine learning programs, they decide to stay in Canada, right? I think it's a huge success for us, right? Like in terms of creating this ecosystem based on talent. But then also what that means is it also attracts a lot of investment from the industry side, because talent is here, and so industry follows talent in some sense, uh, which also then expedites the adoption and the rate of, like, say, impact that can be created in the real world through this prolific research which is happening in vector. Um, so yeah, that is a little bit. I know it sometimes it feels like, there is, yes, so vector is a non-profit institute, but what it really does, right? So in essence, what we really do is, one, we have 700 plus researchers who are doing fundamental research in machine learning. The researchers who are focused in healthcare and applying like machine learning in healthcare. Then we have the core vector organization, which is essentially enabling a lot of this research, the talent development. Specifically, AI engineering team in Vector sits between this research and application, and so we ensure that this research is also applied, and we help our say key stakeholders, industry or small and medium enterprises, to adopt this research faster, so that it generates value for them. Um, and that has been like the big kind of mandate for AI engineering team within Vector. So I joined the team, coming to why I decided to join Vector, right, in a sense, and what led to me joining the team. So I had met uh, uh, quite a few people in the AI ecosystem in Canada, right? First of all, if you anyone is doing any AI, like it's or machine learning, they would know about Vector, right? So I was in Houston, I still knew about Vector, right? Kind of thing. Like, okay, this is this brilliant research institute, right? And that was my impression, right? Kind of thing. And then when I started meeting a lot of people in Canada, because we were thinking of, oh, should we move to Canada, right, from Houston? And so we were applying for like a permanent residency, and I was in the process of meeting kind of key stakeholders um, in AI, right, in Toronto. And obviously every like all of that would lead in some way of saying, oh no, like you should actually check out Vector, because Vector is like this amazing institute, and you really like and be inspired by what they are doing. And so then eventually I got connected with Cameron, who is actually now who was even then like the chief commercialization officer and VP of industry at Vector. And we had a really good conversation. There at that time, Vector did not have an AI engineering team. So he said, like, you know what, like we have some roles, but you probably won't enjoy that, right? But let's keep in touch, right, kind of thing. And then fast forward 2 years after that, like the whole process, we had got our PR, and I wasn't sure whether I should still move or not. And then I saw that Vector now has like an engineering team, right? And so then we reconnected, and there was like the role which I am in currently, which is director of AI engineering. Essentially, the goal for that role was come and help us build these capabilities, right? Of say, how do we build and structure like an AI engineering team within Vector, and that was super interesting for multiple reasons. But my very first question was this, right? So my very first question to my then boss was, I don't publish. I said, like, the day I graduated from my PhD, I stopped caring about publishing, right, kind of thing. And he jokingly said, and I told that to our previous CEO as well. So like Garth Gibson was the CEO back then, and he said, yeah, we have a lot of prolific researchers, and I don't think you are going to compete with them. Like you cannot compete with them, like in terms of like publications and the quality of research that they produce. But that is not the goal of this role. The goal of this role is we want someone with your background who has experience in applying cutting edge research to solve real world problems, building systems that scale. And so, for example, in Shell, I had one of the projects which I worked on when I left had around like 8 or 9 thousand machine learning models up and running in real time. So it was like a full-fledged product which has scaled like globally. Um, and then secondly, we want someone who can help us build capabilities in terms of talent as well, right? So what is the right kind of talent that we need to to kind of position Vector in this, like, say, next phase? And I had built teams twice from scratch, like, and so this was that another opportunity of again doing it in a very unique organization which is very impact driven. So it was like an easy decision once I got the offer. Uh, but that's the story about how I joined kind of Vector. And when I joined, we had around 3 engineers, like AI engineers. Uh, Actually, 2 applied ML scientists and 1 engineer was the team when I joined. And now we are around 20. So it has been a tremendous growth in that sense. And I feel like we are just getting started even then, right? So
Absolutely, and thanks for sharing. This is such an interesting story about how it, you came about in Vector Institute, and also sharing about the things that how Vector Institute is contributing to Canadian AI ecosystem. You mentioned about startups as well, how Vector Institute works with industry and startups, and when the AI engineering team started, it was you who started here. I'm sure like how AI has changed in the last few years. You would have seen the ecosystem and the startup ecosystem as well, especially in Canada, changed a lot. What have you seen like the startups that were coming earlier, like 4 years back, 5 years back in AI space, and now? How do you see the approach or the mindset of those startups have changed now?
yeah, so okay, I'll answer that in a couple of ways, right? So one is I'll just quickly correct you, right? So I did not actually start the AI engineering team. Like there was we
Okay.
had someone like who was already there who started the team, but like
Hmm.
Ron Botkin, and he's no longer here. But I was the first hire. You can think of it that way,
Okay,
right? In the
got it.
team. So not quite started, but like very early on, right, kind of thing. In terms of startups, right? So I think Vector has this bronze sponsorship programs, and this is where like more kind of mature startups are part of the program, and they are very much like an AI first startups, right? Then we also have fast lane program, which is geared towards small and medium enterprises, and many of the startups which have AI as a differentiator, right, and are using technology are part of like the fast lane program, and they could be startups, right? And not we have to differentiate in a sense that not all small and medium enterprises are venture backed or are in the startup mode, right? Like many of them are just in this say sustained growth kind of small business mode, right? So not all of the fast lane companies are startups. So some of the say observations in terms of say 4 years ago versus now are also drawn from my involvement with say the startup ecosystem, both in the states and even in the Canada. In terms of, so I mentor at like the CDL Energy and Climate Stream, right? So Creative Destruction Lab is a phenomenal organization. I think they are doing really brilliant work in terms of their mission of advancing like entrepreneurship. And so what I've seen is like 4 years ago, you had the startups where a lot of the startups were either the core machine learning startups were very much focused on platforms and tools, right? And so you will see startups which will say, okay, we are going to build a platform as a service, right? Well, like and then a lot was also happening in say software as a service, uh, and then you would see tooling startups coming and filling in say these gaps within MLOps tool chain, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so that was like the core kind of AI startups happening in that sense. Then there are always like a lot of the startups where they say, okay, we have this very interesting and deep understanding of the domain, but now we know a lot of this machine learning modeling has evolved, and it has been easier to productize this machine learning models. Even 4 years ago, right? Like most of what you'd call, say, a standard vanilla flavor machine learning models, they were we had a good recipe book as an industry of how would you would like productize those things. Um, and so they were going after, say, there is this problem which needs prediction, and the prediction or this monitoring is currently done either very manually, or uh, it's rule based, and so we will change that. And what we will bring is we'll bring more intelligence to it through machine learning, right? And that was like the startup kind of the second bucket of machine learning startups, if I may. What I've seen is, fast forward, say 5 years now, uh, it has become very easy to spin up a platform, right? So like a lot of that has been commoditized, and the cloud service providers, they offer so much off the shelf tooling that,
Right.
let's say you want to build a computer vision platform, very generic. I'm not saying it's going to be the perfect platform, right? But I want, say, end-to-end framework for computer vision for a certain problem. Now you know a lot of those unknowns are taken out, right? And so now there are a lot of ways you can build it, and most of the cloud service providers make it very easy to pick off the shelf components and stitch them together and build it, right? What I was hoping for, and this is where like a lot of my VC friends feel like we are having this conversation, and that the conversation has not changed, is in the MLOps space, where 4 years ago people were saying there will be consolidation in MLOps, and even today there is no. I don't think there's any real consolidation happening in the MLOps space, right, kind of thing. So there are still a lot of tools, and what it means is there's still a lot of kind of value in different positions in the entire machine learning stack, which one company hasn't dominated the entire value stack, right? You could argue there are companies like Databricks who are like kind of, now you can think of them as a full stack kind of machine learning offering, but still I think there's a lot of like opportunities there, and so we are starting to see that stack being reinvented. And most recently, it has been very fastly, like very rapidly being reinvented in terms of what it means for foundation models, what it means for large language models. And so there are terms like, say, FMOps and LLM ops, which are emerging now, right? In terms of how do I take simple things? How do I take a serving of a model, which previously used to be few MBs, maybe hundreds of MBs, to serving of a model which is now tens of GBs, in some cases hundreds of GBs, right? The whole paradigm of that, just that specific thing in the entire, say, MLOps stack has changed. So now there are startups who are pivoting, or there's brand new startups which are coming around to solve that problem, right? So that is how the second bucket is changing. The third bucket is what I think I'm very much excited about, in a sense that because machine learning has become so accessible, and because of a huge credit to like the open source movement in machine learning, right, kind of thing, that a lot of the companies can now have very much access to a lot of these machine learning models, right?
Mhm.
And algorithms, like all of them which are in open source domain. And this has enabled domain experts to create immense value, right? Like, say, uh, I would give like a personal example, in sense, say, predictive maintenance is a really good example, like in from my previous life, right? So we did a bunch of work on predictive maintenance, but we now see that machine learning can actually move significant, like substantial amount of uh, work and value can be extracted by machine learning, right? Not necessarily impacting jobs at all, in fact, right? Like, I think that is like another the doom and gloom kind of scenario which keeps on coming, is, oh, we are going to take away everyone's job. Not really the case in for example, in that example, right, kind of thing. We still need reliability engineers, we still need rotating equipment engineers, right? It's just making their life so easy. It's helping so much in terms of say, just optimizing and even building more accurate forecasts, right, kind of thing, and predictions. And it has become much easier and easier because a lot of these tools are now open source, because the community is open to sharing, like very very generously, right, in terms of what they are doing. And so the non-tech sector has started adopting machine learning uh, at a much rapid pace now. And this is like last 1 and 2 years, I think that is what is happening. So
Mhm.
so you see that this full stack, full vertical startups which are going to use machine learning as their edge, right? You'll see more and more of those, and there's like real business value to be extracted now, like in that domain. So
Right.
that's the third stack, right, which is becoming the pathway to the first MVP is so expedited now, right, when you are trying to do this.
Yeah. Those are very interesting points. We discussed about startups, uh, and obviously startups, they have the agility to move fast and drive adoption, get to the market fast, because I mean they're still in the startup phase, right? But Canadian market, and that's my understanding. It's also largely driven by the top, say, telecom sector. Like we have top five brands, five top banks, insurance. It's highly driven by finance, banking sector, insurance, and also retail, right? Have you seen any change in the adoption of AI by these big enterprises as well, as we have seen the change in the startup ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are seeing quite a bit of change there, right? And I think, in fact, that is one of the big missions for Vector, right? Say,
Hmm.
how can we expedite adoption, right? And a lot of say huge companies in the sectors that you mentioned are actually Vector sponsors, and they're in the Vector ecosystem, right? So I'll give you like a one specific example, right? So we started working on a project for using reinforcement learning, and uh, and TELUS, you mentioned telecommunication sector, right? And so this is where I'm thinking of this specific example. So TELUS found like a really high value proof of concept towards the end of the project, which was, say, how can we use reinforcement learning to optimize energy in data centers, right? And this is not new, right? If you remember this, I think like 6 or 7 years ago, like DeepMind published a paper around how they are using RL for optimizing like data centers for Google, right, kind of thing, stuff
Hmm.
like that. But obviously, they don't share a lot, right? And so to recreate that is also very difficult, right? Kind of thing. We are not using the same techniques, right? To be fair, but at the core, we are using like reinforcement learning for energy optimization in data centers. And when they saw that there is actually value in doing this, like in the simulation environment, they saw promising results. And TELUS was able to not only convince the teams which are responsible for running these data centers, right, to actually try out this new algorithm. TELUS was also a big supporter in terms of open sourcing the whole algorithm, right? So
Yeah.
we now have an open source algorithm which is adopted by TELUS for optimizing the data centers. They did a proof of concept in like an actual small data center to start with, where they are seeing substantial, like in some cases, like 15 plus percentage point of energy efficiencies just based on algorithmic approach, right? And so now they're scaling it and they want to scale it. At the same time, we have open sourced it in collaboration with TELUS. And so anyone can go and use that, right? Which is creating huge impact, right? So this is a very specific example where, uh, on one hand, the say the receptor capacity of an organization like TELUS, and this is one example, but we see that across the board, right? The receptor capacity of our industry sponsors has drastically improved throughout this journey, and they have been able to kind of adopt this latest and greatest methods in machine learning and integrate it in their specific, like say, business value chains to extract value. Uh, and some of the proof are also like recognized externally, right? So you see like TD is like was ranked amongst like one of the top financial institutions globally, uh, to be sophisticated and high in the adoption of technologies like AI, like recently, right? And so I think in some sense, Canada is uniquely positioned to take advantage of, say, technology adoption, and we see like since past few years, the receptor capacity, like across the board, like for industries, big industries, is has drastically kind of changed and improved. And I don't think it's all only. I think it is unfair to attribute all of that only to, say, AI or machine learning, right? Along with the AI and machine learning journey, which we kind of are partners for, they have also been on their own journey in terms of, say, data kind of
Hmm.
modernization and cloud transition and
Yep.
and all of that, right? So it is, and even like internal change management, right? Like how do you manage change at this scale, right? So it is a lot of things, right? It's not just say AI or machine learning, but all of that forces are coming together, where we see like Canadian industries are excelling, right, in adopting uh, technologies like AI and machine learning.
Right. And the way it has changed in the last few months or so, have you seen an uptick in the request to engage Vector Institute? I was just wondering, like, I mean, Vector partners with big industries, and everyone wants to jump on the wagon now and get ahead of the market. So I was just thinking to myself, is it like, are they gonna get a lot of more requests now with AI?
Yeah, so I think one of the things to maybe quickly touch is how Vector operates in terms like more operational, right? So we don't do one-on-one consulting, right? We are not in like say consulting business, right?
Hmm.
In that sense, right? Our model is what we call collaboration oriented projects, right? And so when the AI engineering team has identified these techniques and they start building these reference implementations, we actually do a collaboration project, a boot camp or a longer term project or a lab where our industry sponsors they send their teams and uh, a lot of like what you would call like competitors, right? Say we have a bunch of banks who are sponsors, for example, right? So in the same boot camp, like RBC might have a team and TD might have a team and Scotia Bank might have a team. Like they are all like in the same kind of a boot camp, right? So we have very much a collaborative model, and the model is like is basically we teach them how to fish. Like we don't give them the fish, right? Kind of thing, because we
Right.
want them to build that capabilities inside their organizations. So that's how we operate, right? And
Hmm.
so this one-on-one, like I don't think the request in sense of one-on-one request is not really the right measure of kind of evaluating this. But what I'll tell you this, right? So we are starting next week. We are doing this prompt engineering bootcamp, right? And we have been working on prompt engineering for almost a year now, right? And so that is to say, we have been working on prompt engineering before all this hype around prompt engineering, right? Before like Chat GPT era, like kind of thing. And we are seeing tremendous interest in that project. Like, like it is oversubscribed, right? And so we are going to do, initially we thought we'll do it once. Now we are going to do it twice and there's more requests. So maybe even there will be like a repeat with more refreshed kind of techniques later in the year as well. So we are seeing some proof in terms of the interest in specifically in these topics of say how do you interact with large language models and how do you extract value from large language models. Like 2 years ago, who would have thought like prompt engineering will be a discipline in itself, right? Like I did not think about it like in that sense, but now it is becoming such an important mechanism of extracting value from this say LLMs.
Right. Uh, we were discussing about this generative AI, and I'll like get back to it maybe later on. Uh, Things we discussed about the Canadian ecosystem, how it is adapting AI and all. But I'm pretty sure there would be some gaps that you would have realized or seen that this is what we need to address as well. Uh, all good that the adoption is coming, but what are your thoughts on these are some of the things we feel we need to address or the gaps in Canadian market to maybe speed up the adoption or whatever gaps you have seen as part of your engagement so far.
Yeah, I think one of the gaps which I see is actually not really technology related. Like I think there is a lot more we in general uh, as a as, as this group of people who understand technology, right? Like and who are going to be affected by technology. Um, we need to do a better job at communicating the risk and limitations of this technology. What I've seen is a lot of the risk which is being kind of put forward by a lot of key stakeholders, like both like in say across the board, essentially, right? Uh, essentially, they are perceived risk, right? They are not real risk, right? Essentially, right? And so, how can we work together uh, on 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 helping understand the limitations and then also helping with what are the risks associated with those limitations, and then how do you address those risks, right? So I think we can do a much better job at that, right? And so this is where I think, honestly, like the collaborative model is works really, really well, right? And so you have people from different sectors, you have people from different size of businesses, you have people from, in some of the collaboration projects, we also have our stakeholders from the government as part of the project, right, kind of thing. And so it facilitates a dialogue, right? It facilitates a different point of views, right? Which actually helps us kind of de-risk some of these technologies, and also understand what really is needed, right, in terms of building these technologies. Uh, I hear this criticism that we are not, like, when I say we, like the Canadian ecosystem in general is not moving fast enough. But I have to say, like, that this the whole ethos of, say, oh, move fast and break things. I don't think it has worked out. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that shouldn't be that is not one, that is not the core values of the Canadian ethos. And so at the same time, there is a good reason to maybe move faster, but not break things, right, kind of thing. Like, and a lot of the real problems, say industrial problems, problems in climate change, right, problems in healthcare, right, you don't have the luxury to break things, right? Like, there's like life and death situations, right, kind of thing. And so although there is this criticism about, oh, we are not moving fast enough, like I would counteract to that and say, like, we need to move a little bit faster, right? But more thoughtfully, right? Like, breaking things and moving fast, that ethos is probably not the right one anyways, right? So let's not try to mimic uh, what feels like has worked for someone else, right, kind of thing. So there are this, like, say certain um, places where we can do better in terms of, say, data sharing and perspectives of, say, risk, as I mentioned. But for the most part, I think we are moving in a steady pace. Even, like, it is accelerating in terms of adoption and creating impact from AI.
So I assume from what you said, you will agree with what Elon Musk and top technologies had to say in their open letter about AI, or like they did caution that yes, they're all in for AI, but the speed at which and the risk that it poses. Uh, would you say that's fair concern?
I would say, okay, so I would say that, should we move responsibly in building these AI systems? Absolutely, right? I think, like, there's no one, I would, like, at least I know that would disagree on this, right? I think I would recognize, like, this profound responsibility which comes with, say, building AI systems and applications, right? And I would also agree that, we have to kind of build systems in such a way that it creates trust, right? Uh, I have, for example, not personally signed the letter, right, kind of thing. Um, and I do think that we have to move towards the solutions, right? So what can we do to address this? And we are already doing some of those things, right? So, for example, we have built this open source tool which comes from a close collaboration with our researchers, called Kaleidoscope. And
Hmm.
Kaleidoscope essentially helps look into middle layers, so essentially behind the hood of LLMs, right? Uh, and investigate them in terms of understanding what is happening. We already have a huge kind of focus on bias in LLMs. In fact, one of the ML scientists in my team is presenting at the bias workshop in a couple of weeks in what are the risk mitigation factors, not just identifying bias, but how do you mitigate those biases in text generation, right? So we are already working on various things, right? We are working on a lot of open source projects in terms of democratizing access to these technologies, right? We are working with in Fastlane, as I mentioned, we are working with, like, small and medium enterprises. So I think one of the big questions which the community is asking is how can we ensure that the benefits of machine learning and AI are not disproportionately gained only by select few organizations? And for that, we are already working with the Fastlane program has 160 plus companies at this point, right? And
Oh,
we are working to help them adopt AI in, so to say, let's say, resource constrained kind of environments, right? Uh, I would personally think that we have already started this journey of being solution focused, and we'll keep continuing doing that, right? I think it is great to have that dialogue right now to understand how, again, like we how much of this is perceived risk versus real risk,
mm-hmm.
right? And so we have to work towards that together as a community, right, kind of thing. So yeah, as one of like we have immense responsibility in doing that. So yeah, we take it very seriously.
Right. Uh, you touched briefly on the generative AI, large language models, and now the adoption coming in, and also briefly discussed about the fear of, is it going to take jobs of people, or humans going to get replaced? I personally feel like the nature of work would change, and with every revolution of technology that has happened, humans have evolved, and their job has become easier, and they've taken on new roles. So what do you think, like how the generative AI and large language model space and the race that we are in right now, in near future, not the longer, but in near future, how do you think the jobs will change, or the way of working will change?
So I think way of working is already changing. Right? This kind of expedites that, right? So that is one, right? What is different though this time is, you mentioned like technology revolutions, right, in the past, right? And so when I look at the past in terms of the technology revolutions, right, what is really different is the pace of the change, right? So like pace of change is very rapid this time, right? And so in some sense, we feel like at times you could feel that we don't even have enough time to process and react to that change, right? Uh, so how can we kind of address that better? Will definitely be like a big question. But for the most part, you are. I would agree that it is changing rapidly, changing the nature of work, right? And when I talk to a lot of people, like for example, in our team, we are using Copilot, right? Like some of our team is using Copilot,
Right.
and it's great. Like they are. I haven't heard once from our team that, oh, this is going to take away my job, right? All I have heard is this makes me just way better and more productive in terms of programming. In fact, it says, oh, we have people who are more focused on, say, modeling side of things, right? And they
Hmm.
they feel, oh, this is just expediting my journey to becoming a better engineer, like software engineer, right? And so again, like it is changing the nature of work, right? Uh, does it have impact on work in general, on labor force? Yes, I think it would be irresponsible not to acknowledge that, right?
Hmm.
And so we have to prepare on how that change will happen. And this is not just a technology question. We have to work with like governments. We have to work with various people beyond technology, like non-STEM fields. Like we have to work with like political scientists and social workers in terms of designing like how this change should happen, right? Uh, but yeah,
Right.
I think things are changing fast. They are definitely affecting, uh, uh, and they're touching it like way more kind of fields now. But again, like a lot of this is around what we are talking about is around language, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I'm more excited about how machine learning and AI will impact applications beyond language, right? And so this is where I think we'll start seeing some. I'm looking forward to seeing some really amazing applications come out beyond language in generative AI, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I've been using, if you must have heard about Bard, Google Bard. That's what I've been using, and like I cannot explain how easy some things have become. And as you rightly said, like being productive. So it definitely has started playing a role in my everyday life. and I'm pretty sure like people who've been using ChatGPT, they're I've seen like various innovative ways they have inculcated that in their daily routine or life, how they use it. So it'll be interesting to see. I see a lot of like content creation space going through a complete revamp or a change with this content creation, logo design, all of that. I mean, it's still there, but I think it's the speed at which it's gonna change is going to be rapid from here on, and obviously people, their role will change and how it impacts their jobs, etc. They'll obviously we acknowledge that, and they'll probably be thinking of creative ways how they can evolve themselves as well.
I think you touch a very good point here, which is like I think I would emphasize on the creativity part of this, right? So I think this will free up time to be more creative. This will free up time to be more innovative, right? And the medium is becoming more efficient, right? Like in that space. And so at the end of the day, medium is a medium, right? Like, it is not really the end product. It's about how you use this medium, right? And so I think this will spur up uh, a very different kind of like even say uh, a revolution in creative space, right? In terms of like how like people will start using machine learning and AI, right? In incorporating it, right? Especially generative AI.
Right,
Uh,
right,
and
exactly,
and then in creative space, the highest value, say highest value work is thinking and creativity, and so you
exactly,
have much more time for thinking and creativity, right?
right, exactly. uh, we talked about like people or technology in general, people who are close to technology research work, etc., right? But we have a lot of people who are like very new to AI, and somehow sometimes there's a notion that obviously I need a PhD or research work to get into it, and maybe this was true in the earlier days, but how the technology has changed and the adoption and new ways of implementing AI in business has changed. What do you think are opportunities for someone who's like fairly new in AI, maybe not with a PhD or educational background in AI? What are the opportunities for them in terms of their career within the AI space?
Yeah, so I think um, I'll answer this by saying like even back then, I don't feel that you had to be needed like a PhD, right,
Hmm.
to do machine learning or AI for most of the jobs,
Hmm.
right? Yes, if your goal is to improve the next best algorithm or come
Yeah.
up with the next best algorithm, then yes, then having that deeper focus for a longer period of time, which you get to do during your say doctorate, uh, is useful and important. uh, when you're looking at applied side, I don't think having that PhD or even like an advanced degree is necessary, right? In fact, like in my previous role, one of the best ML engineers I had the pleasure of working with had an art history degree, right? And so I think uh, because of the access to knowledge, like you can upskill yourself if you want to be in AI. There are various ways of upskilling yourself beyond getting a degree, right, per se.
Hmm.
But secondly, I would say even go a step like back, and I would encourage everyone to think slightly more deeply in terms of why do you even want to be in this field, right? I I think there's something when you go and look at say practical solutions, every single person will tell you one thing, which is domain expertise is very important, right? And so let's say you are a mechanical engineer. Like I am a mechanical engineer by training, right? Right? And so this resonates close to heart. And so if you're a mechanical engineer who has been practicing mechanical engineering, the domain expertise is very, very important, right? When you're building solutions. So become AI fluent, right? Understand about like the pros and cons and how you can use machine learning, right? There are roles, right? And not everyone has to be an ML scientist or ML engineer. Like you can be a product manager, you can be a technical program manager, you can be a domain. Like domain expertise is very much needed in most of the real world applications of AI. And so I would encourage people to think of do they really want to work in core AI, right? Or they want to use AI to for different say applications. And if it is later, then there are other career pathways apart from just being, say, a scientist or an engineer, in AI and machine learning space. Um, and with a lot of like this uh, abstractization, as I would say, like there's a lot of like say abstractization happening in within machine learning space. It's becoming easier and easier again to adopt this, right? So you want to adopt like a language model, you need to know how to integrate an API. That's the only thing that you need at this point, right? Kind of thing. Yes, you need understanding of like the machine learning model, right? But then not everyone would need that. For the most of the time when you're starting to build products, you'll need to know how to consume these tools and services, right? Kind of thing. And so the barrier to entry is lowering very, very rapidly.
Right. That's an important point. And you mentioned about the roles or different kind of roles that now exist and people can play. And you don't have to be kind of a AI code or AI engineer, I would say. Right. And I also was looking at how the roles at even Vector Institute have changed or opened up, right? Uh, in our earlier discussion, you were saying taking a product approach. So I saw like there were some product roles at Vector Institute, which clearly demonstrate okay how it is opening up, how different roles are coming up. So for someone who's looking to contribute or to even join Vector Institute in different kind of roles, what do you say would be the opportunities at Vector Institute itself and the kind of roles that you are looking within your team or extended team at Vector Institute?
Yeah, so I think Vector Institute has very different roles, right? So I think which is which it makes there's an opportunity for everyone in some sense, right? Kind of thing. So we obviously have a very defined process with our like university partners in terms of recruiting like researchers, and Vector has postdoc programs, right? So that is like the core kind of research roles. In the AI engineering, we have very much applied roles, and so we have ML engineering role. We within that ML engineering, we have modeling versus core engineering. We also have systems engineer, right? And so I think that is will soon kind of be expanding on that piece as well. And so there will be like opportunities for systems engineer. And as you correctly mentioned, I'm very excited. We have finally closed our very first product role, and so I'm excited about that journey as well. And so we depending on how we progress, like that is also an opportunity, right? And but then we partner closely with the health team, right? Where there's currently, for example, a program manager role in health team open right now, right? Which is where again domain expertise in health is very important, right? Kind of thing. And so that those are the roles. Our industry team has capabilities in project management. They have capabilities in business development, right? With the lens of AI and machine learning. Uh, and we have academic partnerships team, which has roles which are focusing on how we partner with a lot of these academic institutions, right? Kind of thing. So there are various roles. I would encourage everyone to go and look at our job board, and we are mindful in how we grow, but we are kind of focusing on things that matter, and there will be open positions, right, based on that.
Right.
And then we have
And
internship programs. So I completely forgot. Like we have a very prolific internship program. Any given semester, like just within AI engineering team, we have 6 to 7 interns in our team. Uh, and so those applications open thrice a year. Right? So keep an eye out for if you're looking for internships, keep an eye out for those applications.
right. Thanks for sharing this. This was an important point about internship. A lot of people they look at, and I think I can't see you. I mean, it's a perfect place if you are getting into AI to do your internship. And if anyone interested, do check out the rules at Vector Institute. Uh, I want to pivot a bit from the heavy discussions we have had and uh, ask about some light things, maybe on books. I'm passionate about books, so I want to ask like if you have to recommend two books, one in the say AI ML space, and one in maybe self development, fiction, non-fiction, anything of your liking. What would those two books be?
But that's a kind of very interesting question. So I actually read one I used to read a lot. Now for past 2 years, I've started getting back on at least reading bit more than what I used to. So I read a lot, and so within AI and machine learning space, like there are a lot of books I could recommend, but most recently, I think I really enjoyed reading the ML Ops book by Chip. And she's brilliant. First of all, so her lectures and everything at Stanford are great. But now she has a book, so I would highly encourage anyone who wants to get into like ML Ops. I think her book is it it focuses on all the right things when you start building ML systems that can scale. So I think that book is brilliant. Uh,
Sorry, do
on
you
the
mind repeating the book again for the audience?
Yeah, so the book is called. You know what? I don't want to lie. So it's called ML Systems Design.
ML
Uh,
system design. Okay. Okay.
and on on the non-technical side, I I I really enjoyed like the latest book by uh, vector affiliate faculty Ajay Agrawal.
Mm-hmm.
So Ajay Agrawal and they like Avi Goldfarb, both of them are who are like vector affiliate faculties. The recent book on power and predictions is very interesting in terms of I can resonate a lot with him. They talk about systems level thinking and how like extracting and finding niche in verticals that have massive scale
Mm-hmm.
is kind of where they see a lot of value in the economics of AI, right, kind of thing, which is very interesting. On the non-fiction side, actually, this is something, or not on the technical side, maybe on the fiction side and non-fiction side, completely not related to AI or somewhat not related to AI. The one which I really enjoyed is Ministry of the Future, which is like I think it talks about climate change and in a way like in this dystopian future, and we are moving towards that dystopian future very very fast. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it was like this aha moment in terms of like this is not it should be fiction, but a lot of it is coming true way faster than you would anticipate, that kind of thing.
Right.
um, and then I'll give you like one last one, which I am currently reading and I'm really really enjoying it. It's like actually a book by Indian author called Amish, and he had a trilogy on Shiva. So this is like uh, a modern, more practical and philosophical take on mythology of Indian, like Hindu mythological uh, uh, paradigm. And there's this new books on a trilogy of Shiva. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
there are three books, and which are like brilliant, very
Yeah, I've heard
brilliantly
about it.
written.
I've heard about it. Though I haven't read it. I've heard about a couple few of my friends they were reading that.
I'm happy to lend you after I'm done. So
Thank
like
you.
if
That is much appreciated, Deval. Well, there's one last question I want to ask, which I generally ask every guest on Inspired is, if you want to share, or if you have to share one biggest life lesson or learning from your experience, it could be your career learning or for your life learning. What would that be?
Oh wow, okay, that's a loaded question. But I think okay, one of the things which I realized is even say a lot of people I meet, like with especially within AI space and machine learning space, are very passionate about what they are doing, and they are very much into the technology, and they want to make a difference. What I learned throughout the year is even if you're passionate about one thing, uh, go find something drastically different uh, and and create a passion for that. Right? It could be anything. It could be like cooking, right? Something which is not at all related to what your day job is, right? Uh, that would just make you better at your day job, I guess. Like that is my life lesson. Like I try to do that. I'm not perfect, right, on that front. Uh, but that is my one advice, right? Which I personally on this journey of becoming better at that. But I think it has a lot of value.
Right. like kind of your passion, right? Like doing something which is a passion, not like your regular work, but something of a
Right,
passion, right?
like what you are doing, right? What you are doing right
Yeah,
now. This is your passion, right? Kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. One of my passion is cricket. I love playing cricket.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah. There you
yeah,
go. Right.
yeah, I tend to spend time on the field when I'm not working there. But thanks for sharing that, though. And it was such a pleasure having you. And I'm pretty sure, like, I got so much insights into Vector Institute, how the workings of it, how it is helping the Canadian AI ecosystem. So I'm pretty sure everyone who's gonna listen to it or is listening to it, they'll find insights into the Vector Institute, and also you touched upon the roles and the role the AI is also gonna play, and the open roles at Victor Institute as well. So it was such a fascinating conversation with you. I didn't even realize the time that we spent. So thank you so much.
No, thanks, Rich, for having me, and I really enjoyed this conversation as well.
Yeah. Okay. And many thanks everyone for tuning in. You have a nice day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye for now.